Well, good day, folks. The front line is loud, but the voices behind it much louder and far more important. I'm Bob Plaschke, and this is First Response. We're the number one podcast that takes you behind the police badge and uncovers real stories and experiences of police officers from all walks of life and the topics that shape public safety today. Hopefully, you're curious about the people behind the hero, and they are indeed heroes, and the topics driving policing. So this is kind of your front row seat. So let's get started. I should say before we start that this podcast is sponsored by Pepperball, where I have the honor to be the chief executive officer. Pepperball creates non-lethal alternatives to guns that police use to keep themselves and the public they serve safe. So today, I'm super excited. I am being joined by Andrea Alt. Andrea Alt is one of the leading experts in the use of canines in public safety for policing. She has been doing this work in or around Cincinnati for over 20 years. She is a intranet and Instagram sensation. She'll tell us the hundreds of thousands of folks that follow her and her canines through the process and learning about those canines. Andrea, it's great to have you on the podcast. Thank you for joining. The first question is why do you use the term canine? I know that when I first joined or I started Pepperball, I would say the word dogs and everyone would kind of give me a bit of a dirty look. So why is it canines versus dogs?
Yeah, that's just the proper term. I think it's the more official term, if you will. It sounds better, and that's just the name that, the name that they give the working dogs, and it's just kind of stuck. And, ever since then, we've not steered away from the term canine.
Now, that's Armor behind you. Is that right?
Yes. This is Armor. Yeah.
And oh my goodness. Oh, and and Armor, I know, is relatively new. You had your last canine pass, I think, just a year ago or so?
Yes. Canine Creed was my first working dog, and he retired about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. And I got Canine Armor after Creed, and I've had her for about 2 years.
Oh, fantastic. Well, answer the second question, which are what I mentioned. How many Instagram followers do you have, and what is the Instagram tag name so people can go watch what you do?
So on Instagram, I have almost maybe 90,000 followers. It's all my handles on my social media are all the same. It's all Canine Creed Armor, and they're all verified accounts because I have so many fake accounts, unfortunately. And I had to verify all our accounts, but they're all Canine Creed Armor, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and they're all verified.
And which is the most popular of all of those?
Right. I do most of my stuff right now on Instagram, but most of my following is on TikTok. I've got, I think, a little over 1 million followers on TikTok.
So I knew one of them was 1 million somewhere. I just didn't want to I want to say it. So you have 1 million people that follow you on TikTok. Did that happen overnight, or did it take time? I mean, how does that work?
Sometimes it can't happen overnight. You need that one good video that just goes viral that everybody falls in love with and comments on and shares. And, that's what it took. It took one good video, and I gained about 500,000 followers overnight.
And tell me the video. What was the video?
So it's funny you say that. The video is actually me and another master Pepperball instructor, Mike Forrest. I know you know him very well.
Mm-hmm.
We had this idea together that we were going to do a door popper video. And what the door popper is that in our police cruisers, there's an automatic button that we have on our vest. When we press it, it releases the door to the canine on the police car. Well, Mike Forrest was the bad guy, and he had a big arm sleeve on. And we were simulating me getting beat up far away from my cruiser. And I popped the door, and Canine Creed came to my rescue. And we had all kinds of different cameras set up. We had one um, in front of the cruiser, so it saw when the door popped, the dog came out and he's running. And then the second camera was Mike, trying to act like he's fighting me. He's on top of me swinging. And then all of a sudden the third one is from behind, where the dog comes and just bites him in the arm and takes him down. And it was a really cool video. We paired it with really good music, and it just blew up overnight. And that's the famous video. And this was probably about 3 or 4 years ago.
No, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Getting, there's so much I want to know, or at least I want to understand about Armor and about canines and how they work in policing. So the first is he understands commands in 3 different languages. So is that, and how many different commands are there? And do you know all 3 of those languages? I don't expect that you know French, or maybe you do.
So I do, but I don't. I know the simple commands in Dutch and German related to police dogs. And then the third language would be English for them. So some of them are like, maybe the sit is in Dutch, and maybe the find drugs or find explosives might be in German. And they just we tweak it and they kind of mesh together somehow, if that makes any sense. But generally, working dogs in our area are trained in Dutch or German. Some Czech, but Canine Creed, my retired dog, he was Dutch. And now Canine Armor, she's trained in Dutch.
And so they're trained in Holland, in other words. And then do they come over here? They're shipped across.
So not necessarily trained in Holland. Now they are born in Holland, over in Europe. So Armor and Creed were from Czech Republic.
Okay.
And a lot of them, some of them are Holland, Poland, it just depends. But over in that area of Europe is where generally all the good working dogs come from. And they must be a year old on their passport to be able to come to the United States. And yes, they travel by flight, obviously that's how they get here. And once they come to the United States, that's where they begin their training.
but is it big? So they use German and Dutch because they've heard it in their first year, and whoever the people that are breeding them are starting to get them ready, I guess. Is that the concept?
You could say that. They're, generally over there, they're used to that dialect. They hear it. And another reason is so other people can't command them when they come over.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's the reason. Oh, see? Oh, isn't that cool? So that means the bad guy can't give them a competing command. Now, I would have assumed that Armor only responds to your voice. Is that that
is very true. Yes, it's the tone and the voice is the key to the dogs. Tone and voice are absolute key.
But someone could try to simulate, and so this is it's kind of a backup, so to speak. It's like kind of a fail safe of sorts.
Yes, they could. And it would be very hard because they key in so much on the tone. My tone, unless you know my tone, you can speak just like me. If you tell her to sit and I tell her to sit, and it just depends on the tone and the context of it, she's going to relate to me more because that's what she's used to and that's what she knows. If that makes any kind of sense.
No, it makes total sense. This is so fascinating. Okay, so but historically and I guess culturally, they provide the commands in other languages as a backup or a failsafe.
Correct.
Okay, and how long does it take her to? And I'm sorry, Armor is a her? Is a she?
Yes. Yep. It's a she. Yep.
By the way, are there more she's and then he's, or does it matter whether you're he or she?
It doesn't matter, but there are more he's than she's, if that makes sense. And the reason for that in police work related or patrol work is that the males tend to be bigger, if that makes sense, bigger and a little stronger. So that's why we predominantly go with male dogs. They're not any smarter. They're not any more drivier. And what I mean by that is just the ability to want to do the job. It's just that they're just bigger.
So I have a male and a female Labradoodle, Australian Labradoodles at home, and the female is absolutely the dominant between the two.
Yeah.
So no, and she's definitely smarter. Luckily, luckily Gooses
Yeah.
can't listen to this podcast because he'd get a bit upset at
Sure.
me criticizing him. All right, so how long does it take for you to kind of get Armor on board with your voice and commands?
Oh gosh, they'll pick up and within the first week of that, and it'll just progress. It doesn't take long for these dogs to learn that tone. If you're consistent with them, and consistent is the key, they'll pick up on it in week 1.
Wow, because they have the training, they have some basis of training in the from when they were sent to you. They already
Could be. It's really just consistent, and they're just so eager in their drive to work, that's what they want. And like I said, if you're consistent with them, they pick up on that. Like, I mean, in a split second, being consistent, though, within week 1, they've got it down. They've got some of it down. Now, not all of it. We might just be working on just tone and obedience in week 1, but they pick up pretty quick.
Now, the way that they're deployed, and I would imagine people who are listening to this, they can just go and get examples off the internet. They're deployed to engage a suspect who has actively resisted arrest, who's not complying with police orders, who is dangerous, and they basically go and jump on them. Are they trained to go at some certain part of the body to get them to comply? How does that work?
So yes, if we meet all the legal limits, and Graham versus Connors, the main case law that we're going to go by when we use any kind of force regarding whether it's a police dog and whatnot. But we train our dogs to target specific limbs. Whether the shoulder pocket, the bicep, the tricep, the leg. Because we don't train them to. We don't want them to do a crazy amount of damage. We simply train them to bite and hold.
Okay. And bite and hold until the suspect kind of gives up, and then you have them release.
Bite and hold until the officers can get there safely, make sure there's no weapons and everything's under control. We take the dog off, give them an opportunity to comply, or you're going to get another bite and hold.
Right. Now, I have never been bitten by a dog. These particular dogs have pretty strong jaws, as I understand. They're signed. So it hurts, I assume.
It hurts terribly. The pressure is awful. It's not even about the teeth. I mean, the teeth marks hurt, but the pressure when they just clamp down, it's just they're like you said, their jaw strength is incredible.
And this type of breed is what? What is Armor? What kind of a breed is it?
Armor's a Belgian Malinois. She might have a little bit of German Shepherd mixed in her, and most of them do when they come overseas, which is we're learning that it's a very interesting mix. Is when you're mixing a Belgian Malinois with a German Shepherd, they're becoming, a great breed, a great dog, a great mix of two breeds.
And they're incredibly athletic in terms of jumping.
It's insane how athletic they are.
And so how big of a fence can they jump?
Gosh, she probably could jump 7 foot. Now Creed, not so much, but I've never seen a dog jump that high before. She jumps in her kennel before I let her out, and she almost touches the top of it, and the top's almost 8 to 9 foot. And she's bouncing. She's bouncing up like a kangaroo. Just so excited to get out. I've never seen anything like it.
Can you get her to jump in front of us in the camera here?
Maybe. We'll see. Loose. I don't know if we can see her.
Yeah, we can see her.
Yeah.
There she is.
I don't think she's going to be able to jump, but she's a wild little girl.
You look at her, and this is such reminds me of my female Labradoodle, right? So she's just a happy dog.
Yeah. Oh, she's just a happy dog.
But the moment that you say something, she will sit, right? So, like, just make her sit down, and she just stays there, and she's not going to move. Oh, I can't see behind the desk. Oh, there she is. Okay. And she'll just stay there. She won't. She's so eager to move, but she won't do it.
Right. Not until I give her that command. So,
Okay, and so how does she know that use the example when Mike Forrest was kind of beating up on you or simulating beating up on you? How does she know that you're getting beat up on? I mean, can she just tell it's a
well,
protective structure?
that yes and no. I think they have a good, spidey sense and a good sense of stuff like that, but that's through training and repetition. So,
That she can that you show her what is good and what is bad.
mhm.
Because for example, you wouldn't want her to engage if you have control of the person, as an example.
Right, correct. And I'm also commanding her as she's getting closer. I'm giving her that command on what she's supposed to do. So I'm reinforcing what she's supposed to do.
And so that's the use case that I would expect or the one that I understand and see is the canine engaging the subject to getting them to comply. What are other use cases for canines, police canines?
Like for narcotics, you're talking about detection work?
Exactly. Other ways
Yes.
they're used.
They're used for detection work, whether it is narcotics or explosives or guns, shell casings, even electronics. These dogs, they can do a variety of things when it comes to what they're being trained to use for us to utilize them for, whether it's police or military.
So they can smell, and you teach them to identify smells like gun casings. So that would say there would be a presence of a gun in a let's say a barricaded situation. They would go in and use that as what they're looking for.
We would train them on the odor of the gunpowder, and what the casing would smell like, with gunpowder residue. And then what the firearm would smell like. And that's, let's say, maybe there's a police pursuit, and somebody tosses a weapon out of the car during the pursuit, and it's suspected that that's what happened. Well, maybe we would call the canine to maybe search the area of the pursuit, or maybe when they crashed to see if they tossed a weapon. That would be a perfect example of a dog that would be trained on to find any type of firearm.
And do they bark differently given what they smell? I mean, in the unrealistic scenario where the person throws out some explosives and throws out a gun, could they tell that they can tell the difference? But how do they tell you what they're smelling?
So it just depends on what we're looking for at that particular time. If I know I'm going there to find a gun, I'm going to give her a command to find the firearm. But in Armor's case, her command is the same, whether it's firearms or explosives. So I'm just going to have to figure out what scenario, what situation am I in, and what am I likely to find, and that's how we kind of assess that.
So you tell her to look for a certain thing, and then she barks if she finds that thing.
So she doesn't necessarily bark. We train our dogs to be passive. So what she's going to do is she's going to lay down and stare at it, or sit down and stare at it, or just freeze. However she can get as close as possible to it, we train them to stare at it or freeze or sit or lay down.
And just out of interest, why not bark?
Barking we use a lot for when it's related to humans. So we know the difference. So if we're in for a building search, let's say someone breaks into a building and we're using a dog to clear and search the building, and there's multiple doors, and maybe the bad guy or bad girl went and locked themselves in a room. Well, we train our dogs to sniff under the doors and bark when they're as close as they are to a big plume of human odor.
Okay. And by the way, you're so succinct and perfect in your answers in a good way. I wish I could be and not use my ums and my ahs. You're just very good on camera. Not surprisingly, since you're an Instagram and TikTok star. So I would imagine the barking as well is a bit scary for the bad guy as well, because they kind of know the dog is there. I mean, I think most of those body cams, you and I guess you tell them to bark so that they know that that dog is kind of in the area.
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the reasons that bark can be pretty powerful and pretty scary.
In every body cam I've seen, it is very scary. Can you
Right.
can you get Armor to bark, or are you allowed to do that now?
I don't. So since I wish I had Creed here, so I don't think I'll be able to get her to bark because I haven't worked on that command with her quite yet.
Okay.
So no, but she it'd be loud. Yeah.
You hear it. Yeah, you know it.
You'd hear it.
How many canines are deployed across the United States? I mean, this is an expensive investment. Is it, and how much does it cost an agency to support a canine? And do most agencies have them or not?
So the answer across the United States, I do not know that. I would love to find out, but I can tell you in our area, specifically Hamilton County, I mean, the city has, geez, over maybe 15 canine teams. The county, maybe 12 to 14 canine teams. This is the sheriff's department. And then throughout Hamilton County, we have smaller municipalities that might have one or two dogs, depending on the township and the size of the police department. So I would say roughly in just our Hamilton County, gosh, I would say 30 or 40 canine teams.
Wow. So that is more than I would have expected. I would have expected it would. And are they actively used? They must be, otherwise they wouldn't have them.
Yeah, they are. And you have to take into consideration that the canine team's not always working. So maybe just cut that in half. Maybe, half of these teams are off because it's their off day and the other half are working. And then you spread out throughout the county. Some are used to just detect explosives. So the explosive dogs, they can't find narcotics because they're not trained to do that. Then the other ones maybe are clearing buildings, or they're at the courthouse, or they're at the justice center working, and maybe another dog is used for a track because someone just committed a burglary. So they're used they could be used for many different things. So they're not all doing the same thing.
Okay. And is Armor trained for explosives, guns, all of those things? So she's like a multi-purpose?
Yes, she's what's called a dual purpose canine. She's trained in explosives and firearms, and then she's trained in tracking. She will apprehend. She can do building search. A lot of the patrol related aspects of the working dog, she's trained in that.
So this is a sad question. How many? And I know the number of officers that are killed on duty, and it's kind of roughly 1,900 officers, unfortunately, are killed in duty every year, which is a horrible statistic. How many canines are killed in duty or injured in duty? I would imagine it must happen.
Yeah, it's not as significant as the officers, but it happens a lot. And whether it's, whether they're being stabbed or shot at, sometimes it's a medical emergency, and that happens a lot too.
Which is, it's it's sad on any dimension in terms of people mistreating others and obviously mistreating dogs. She seems to live a very happy life, though. Now, how long will she be in service, and where does she live at night?
So Armor definitely has a very happy life. She is full of energy, and she goes home with me every night. She has her big outdoor kennel right now, and she is learning how to behave in a house. This is new to her. It took Creed a few years to not climb on the walls, jump on everything, bounce around like a bull in a china shop. And she's there. She is a bull in a china shop, and it's okay because she's still young. So there are, there's parameters on her on what she's allowed to do. So she gets inside time about an hour a night, and then she's right back outside where she belongs.
Yeah. I made the mistake of welcoming our Labradoodles onto our bed, and my wife never forgave me for that, because now once they're there, going back in the kennel is not easy, and they don't do it. Oh my goodness!
Right. Now she'll probably, your other question, how long do they usually work?
Yep.
Between 8 to 10 years of service is a good solid answer for that, depending on their health.
And then when they retire, where do they go?
They go with their handler. And that's pretty much across the board for police dogs. As long as, I've never met a handler that didn't want the dog. So it's different than the military. The military doesn't operate like that. Generally, if you're in the military with a working dog, you get a 3-year term or 3-year tour with the dog, and the dog's passed on to another handler, and they keep going. And maybe if you're the last handler for the military dog, you get the opportunity to keep it. But
Now, you served for your country in the Army. Did you do this kind of work in the Army?
I did not. No, I was a chemical specialist. So
Yeah.
completely unrelated.
And so why did you decide to do this? Because it's
I think I got slobber all over my glasses.
absolutely. Why did you decide to get into this? And this probably wasn't easy, I would imagine, to have learned to be a canine specialist.
Yes, it's definitely. I gotta take those off. Can't see anymore. But it's just I need windshield wipers for my glasses because of her. I always just enjoyed animals, and I just have that passion just to work with them, specifically dogs. I was always intrigued on everything that they could do, and I'm very good at being consistent. And I put my heart and passion into things, and I care so much about these animals that was just always my dream job. And I never knew really about it in the military because I was so young. I was only 18 when I joined the Army. I didn't even know that was an option until I got out and, got into law enforcement.
Well, I think it's completely appropriate that the dog would stay with you, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
It's your best friend, and it's taking care of you on the job. Now, has Armor ever been involved in anything serious in the last couple of years? Has she? What's the most, most dangerous thing that she's done that you can?
Yeah, she's tracked and helped solve a case. There was a robbery at a BW3's at one of the local municipalities around here in Hamilton County, and it was basically a holdup. The guy went in with a gun. Threw someone in a freezer, held him at gunpoint, and robbed him and took off. And they called for a dog, and she tracked all the way to where he called an Uber. She didn't find him because he was long gone, but we were able to not only find his shirt that he discarded, which we got DNA off of. We found some gloves that he discarded along the track. She found that, which we matched with the DNA, and then they pulled the video recording footage and was able to get, a license plate and kind of track it down and then find him with, his face, everything was on camera. And just through good detective work, we were able to help them solve that.
That's amazing. So, all right. So this guy goes in, he armed robbery, puts the guy in the freezer. He leaves. He runs. I guess he goes to a different location because he didn't want the Uber to be in front of the location. So and along the way, he sheds some of his clothing so that he can change identity, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And then he thinks he's undetected. He gets in an Uber and kind of drives off. Yet Armor was able to take the scent from the location and follow it all the way.
Yeah, because that's how we train them. We train them because we can't train the dogs to smell, a specific item and then go find it, because what criminal is going to leave an item behind? So we have to, our job as handlers is we have to get their nose in the correct odor. So I'm going to ask officers on scene, hey, where did this guy last run? Or if they say, I don't know, well, okay, we know he went out the back door. I'm going to put her nose in the area around the back door and see if she picks up a track.
And how do you know that she's picked up a track?
It's game on. I mean, when she puts her nose down and she goes off to the races with her nose on the ground, I know she's tracking.
So my, and this podcast is not intended to be about Coco, which is my black Labrador, but she loves to chase the ball like Armor has in her mouth. And we have a big lot in the back. And so when I get tired of throwing it back and forth, I'll throw it, in a far part of the yard, but she will sniff the entire yard and she will find that ball.
Of course she will. Yep. They're hunting. They love to work. They love to hunt.
And it's, and I assume, I mean, I haven't looked this up, but I know that the dog's nose is infinitely more sensitive than ours.
Oh gosh, thousands times stronger than ours. Mm-hmm.
And why is that? Just because it's bigger, or because it's bigger?
Well,
and maybe
they're olfactory. Yeah, it's their olfactory senses and systems is so incredible. It's so different. I mean, they can inhale and exhale kind of at the same time, and they take in scent. They got slits in their nose. It's just it's very intriguing how they're built, and that's for survival. That's one of their main senses. It's better than their eyesight, and better than their ears, their hearing. So they have to use their nose for to survive.
Oh my goodness. What are three things or a couple things that we don't know that we should know about canines?
Oh
The
gosh,
people, maybe
that's
people that, when you show them, you take them out, to the school or, people, things that would surprise us.
I think just how their olfactory senses work, and a lot of them don't know that they can breathe in and breathe out at the same
Oh,
time with a specific slit in their nose. Um, is that I learned that, and I was pretty intrigued by that. And they can't, a lot of people think that we can just, they're just going to pick up a scent and go, and they can't. If everybody stomps on the ground in a grass in the area, and we're looking for, if there's 10 of us stomping in the same area, we can't figure out how to tell this dog how to find the guy in the purple shirt that was in the area, if that makes any sense. Some people
yeah.
just think, oh, your dog's just gonna find them. That's not how it works. It kind of goes back to how we have to get their nose in that correct spot, or they could be looking for, they don't know who they're looking for. We
Well,
know who we're looking for. We gotta, they can't scent, they can, but in police work, scent discrimination when it comes to bad guys per se, if we're looking for someone, it's just too hard. We have to get their nose in that correct order, and then they can scent discriminate.
well, and that's what you see in these kind of old movies about, the guy that makes the prison break. They take his bed sheet and they give it to the dog, and then they let the dog go, which is, I assume, the same construct. You give the dog the scent, and then they find that scent.
Mm-hmm.
What was the question I was going to ask you? What happens, and maybe this never happens, but what would happen if you were out and you were doing the work and you became disabled? You got hurt. How would someone control the dog if for some reason you couldn't speak?
That's a really good question. There's a couple ways you can handle that. Is you can train someone, maybe someone close in your department, to learn how to take over, and that is comfortable with the dog, and the dog is comfortable with them, and that is training and practice. You could call another canine handler that is familiar with the dog, and the dog's familiar with them. I always carry a soft muzzle on my vest and on me for that reason. If somehow I need help, I can throw a muzzle on her, or they can put a muzzle on her real quick, and they can try to get her out of the area. So there's a couple different ways we would have to handle that situation, but that could turn into a nightmare.
Well, and let's knock on wood, that you and all the handlers stay safe in that sense, so we don't have to deal with that scenario. I'm going to change the topic. One of the benefits, one of the reasons I do this podcast, I should say, is that the average person, the non-police officer, can get a better sense of how policing works, right? In terms of understanding the purpose of a canine in this case, and the more that they understand, the more that they can, and the more transparency that we can create for policing, the more comfortable people are. Now that you have 1 million people on TikTok, you are talking to lots and lots of people. How do they respond to you as a police officer? Is it good, bad? Do they ask you questions?
It's mostly good. I'd say 80% of it, maybe more, is really, really good, and they're motivating, and they're supportive, and they do ask questions, and they want to learn because they don't understand. And I love that, and that's what the main thing is. I like to deliver the content with the canine and the police related stuff, is just to show people, hey, this is how we do it. This is why we do it, and we're passionate about it. And it's just our job. We have jobs too. We're still humans, just like everybody else.
Well, and I don't mean to laugh. It's what I say over and over. People ask me what I do, and I live in the Silicon Valley, and so there's not that many people that provide equipment to police. And so they're like, oh, and they have a whole bunch of different stereotypes about how, police are. And I'm like, let's start with the basics. They're a brother, a sister, a mother, a daughter, a friend. To your point, it is a calling, and it is an incredibly honorable calling, but you're still just the neighbor down the street. And
Yeah.
so I think good on you to kind of bring policing in a very understandable way, bring it to a lot of people so that they are a little bit more comfortable with policing today. I think it's a really important thing.
Yeah, I agree.
And now, Creed was very popular. Is Armor as popular, or is Armor?
She's getting there. Yeah, she's getting there. Everybody's always, what's going on with Armor? What are you doing with Armor? They still love Creed, and Creed's always, I mean, his legacy will just be on forever. He's the one that started this, and but without Armor, I wouldn't have my nonprofit, because it is called the Canine Creed Armor Program, named after Creed and Armor. And my followers and friends and family, they love seeing those two together. They run the backyard together. It's almost like Creed is Armor's dad, if that makes any sense. That's how he kind of acts with her.
And is he and that's just my bad. I assumed that he had passed away, but he's still up and active, and he's still.
Oh yeah, he's still alive. Yeah, he's 11 and a half, and he's definitely slowing down. He's come to work with me a couple of times, but it's hard for him. He really has trouble getting up and down the stairs, jumping in and out of cars. I have to help him. And he's just getting old, but his mind is completely still there. He's probably losing his eyesight a little bit, but it's hard watching him get old.
I literally, that's exactly what I say about Goose, in that he is getting a little harder to get up in the bed. And sometimes you have to pick him up, and his eyesight is going a bit. But to your point, he still enjoys life, and he's still my best friend. And although unfortunately, Coco, the female, seems to want to kind of alpha male him to some degree. Yeah. Hopefully Armor knows her place with Creed. Hopefully she does. Good. She pays her respects. Well, we're getting to that. You kind of preempted, or you anticipated my question, which is my last question for you, and that is, we try to make a small donation in your name to a charity of your choice. You told us the charity, but give our folks that are listening a lot more information about the charity. What is it? What does it do? And then give the URL so people can make their own donations.
Yeah, that's awesome, and thank you for that. But it's called the Canine Creed Armor Program, and I established that. It's a nonprofit, 501c3. And I established that about 3 or 4 years ago after traveling throughout the country doing canine-related training. And I'm learning that there's other departments and handlers, they don't have protective vests on their dogs. And I was always like, well, why don't you have a vest? Because we use these vests. They're ballistic vests. They protect them when they're tracking. They're stab-proof and bulletproof. But we need them for tracking bad guys, right? And the answer was, well, my department can't afford it, or I can't afford it. I have to pay for it myself. And these vests are thousands of dollars. I think the cheapest one that is okay vest is probably $1,500. But if you want, the top of the line, good ballistic, stab proof, everything, it's going to be between $2,000 to $3,000. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got to do something to help them. And then at the same time, I was getting big on social media. I was getting a lot of followers. People wanted to donate to Creed and send us money. And I didn't need the money because my department provided everything for me. So I was like, well, this is a perfect opportunity to start a nonprofit organization and help other canine teams that are in need, or other dogs that are in need. And I knew at some point I was going to get a second dog, or I was hopeful that I would get a second dog. So that's why I named my nonprofit the Canine Creed Armor Program. Creed's my first dog, and Armor's my second dog. And it just all fell into place. 2 years after the nonprofit that I established, a nonprofit, I got Canine Armor, and that's what makes it just so special. And since I've started this nonprofit, we've donated 9 ballistic vests locally, and I mean, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Kentucky. That's as far as we're going, and we'd be honored to donate even further if someone's in need of a vest.
Oh, that's fantastic. So it's www.caninecreed.com. caninecreed.com.
Yeah.
And there's a website, and you can go there and
Mm-hmm.
oh, that's fantastic. Thank you, Andrea. And I should, by the way, normally I use titles, but Andrea and I know each other
Yeah, this is
on the business side. So, but thank you, Andrea, for taking
absolutely.
the time. Can we see Armor one last time with her
Absolutely.
bullet? Come
Yeah.
on. Oh my goodness, look at her. And that's the bulletproof vest that's on her, right?
Yeah, she's wearing the vest right now. Yeah.
How much does that weigh?
I think maybe 3.4 pounds, 3 or 4 pounds. Yeah. It's very light. Yeah.
She's happy. She's just happy to be on your
She's just
lap.
yeah, I know.
Andrea, thanks again. And so, folks, what a fascinating discussion with Andrea and about canines. You know, when I think about it, one, it's how pervasive they are. I think in fact, I'll provide statistics when I post this on LinkedIn. I think there must be thousands and thousands of canines across the United States that are doing noble work, and they do that noble work every day. The notion of how we always know that dogs have great, strong smelling, but it's so strong and so differentiated that they can smell gunpowder and explosives and track and be used in a lot of ways that I think are really supportive, and not just the ones, the scary ones where they have to take down a bad guy. But it's good to know that they can. I had no idea that they were trained in multiple languages, but it makes perfect sense as well. So, it's the thing that I always try to remember is that our police agencies are really working hard to find ways to solve crimes and to create order without seriously injuring people. And a canine is one of those tools that they deploy, and we're lucky that they do, and we're lucky to have them, and we're lucky that Creed and Armor are such good examples. So remember, it is www.caninecreed.com if you want to donate to Andrea's non-for-profit. So that, folks, is a wrap, so to speak. This has been the First Response podcast. I think we are the number one podcast that talks about the people behind the badge and talks about real stories and experiences of officers from all parts of the country and the world, and what they do, including learning about canines today. So we're learning maybe not only about the officers, but about the canines, and learning a little bit about Armor and Creed. I'm super grateful to Pepperball, who sponsors this podcast, and where I have the honor to be the chief executive officer. And that last time plug, Pepperball creates non-lethal alternatives to guns that police use to keep themselves and the public safe. So till next time, stay safe and be good. Thanks.